three panel members with us today. I'm going to be chairing. But before we introduce everybody, I just wanted to give you the lay of the land and what dementia policy looks like at the moment in Wales. So my name is Gemma Roberts. I'm the National Influencing Manager at Alzheimer Society Cymru. So the lay of the land at the moment. So we're talking about dementia. Dementia is the biggest killer in England and Wales. 1 in 3 of us born today will develop dementia in our lifetimes. There are currently 51,000 people in Wales living in Wales with dementia, and we expect that to rise to 70,000 by 2040. The cost of the economy is £2.3 billion every year, and by 2040 we expect that to increase to £4.6 billion to the Welsh economy. So despite the impact on our people, on our NHS, on our economy, dementia is absolutely not being made the priority that it needs to be. Only half of people living with dementia actually have a diagnosis. So that means the other half are left without the support, without the treatment, without the care that they really need to live well with their condition. And I'm going to open with a little question, and it's not a question to answer, but it's just a question to think about. I mean, we wouldn't accept this level of service in cancer. We wouldn't accept it in heart disease. So why is it that we accept such poor standards in dementia care? I'd like to turn to the panel to introduce themselves and to answer the question, you know, do you feel like dementia is being made the priority that it needs to be?
Yeah, well, I'll start with myself then. So my name's Luke Fletcher. I'm Plaid Cymru's Economy and Energy spokesperson, and I also represent the region of South Wales West. But I'm here actually today in my capacity as chair of the cross-party group on dementia in the Senedd. In terms of the question, I mean, the answer would have to be no. You know, I've got lived experience with dementia. Both sets of grandmothers actually. Well, my great-grandmother and my grandmother had Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia. And that really was one of the drivers behind why I went on my first members' legislative proposal in the Senedd, basing it on dementia and calling on the Welsh Government to establish a dementia data observatory, which is incredibly important because, you know, when we talk about diagnosis, you know, the key to somebody living a long life with dementia and living it well is actually knowing what the type of dementia is. So all the different dementia is that overarching term. There's so many different types within it, and when you know what type of dementia somebody has, that then influences the type of care that they need, and then in turn influences the quality of life. We don't have that data observatory at the moment. When people are being diagnosed, they're not getting the correct diagnosis when it comes to the exact type of dementia, and that really impacts on quality of life. Now, that was introduced back, I put that on the floor of the Senedd back in 2021, maybe early 2022, and now we're in 2025, and no progress on it at all, which indicates to me that actually the dementia isn't a priority, despite the fact the entire Senedd supported that motion.
Thanks, Luke. Moira?
Helo, Moira Wenstin enw fi. Dwi'n byw yn Gaernarfon a mae ngwri efo vascular dementia wedi cael ei diagnosio 6 mlynedd i wan. Do you want me to say what happened now or what?
Yeah, please.
Gafon ni fynd, oedd gyda vascular Parkinson's cynt, so oedd o'n mynd am brofion, a 2 flynedd ar ôl fo gael ei ddiagnosio efo Parkinson, nathon ni ysbyty Gwynedd a i fewn a ysgwyllaw efo'r consultant, a dyma fo'n dweud, oh yes, your husband's got vascular dementia. Oh wow, o hynna'n sioc, complete shock. A dyma fi'n dweud, well, what are you going to give him? Oh, we can't give him anything. Well, what am I supposed to do? Oh, we'll give you some leaflets. So they gave me about that much leaflets, and bye. So ni'n mynd allan o'r ystafell na, ddim yn gwybod beth di hitio fi na idwal. A wedyn, di gorfod ffeindio ffyrdd yn hun be wneud, a na di'r drwg, da chi'n mynd cael y gofal hyd oed y munud da chi'n cael gwybod y diagnosis. a hynny sy'n eisiau i helpu pobl. Da ni'n fod i gwffio, i drio ffeindio peth allan. Da ni fod yn cael yn arwain i wybod beth sy'n eisiau gwneud felly. So, na i ddeud mwy dda chi wedyn.
Ie, diolch Mair am y stori yna. Mabon ap Gwynfor dwi'n lefarydd Plaid Cymru ar iechyd a gofal ag yn anffodus mae profiad Moira a'i gŵr yn llawer rhy gyffredin. Pam fod rhywun yn ystyried fod, beth ydys ti, Gemma, bod un o bob 3 o'r bobl sy'n cael ei geni heddiw yn mynd i gael rhyw brofiad o ddementia yn ystod ei bywyd, mae o'n lladd fwy o bobl na unrhyw glefyd arall ar hyn o bryd. Yna mae'n amlwg fod rhaid i ddementia fod yn flaenoriaeth, ond nad ydi o'n cael y lefel yna. A'r hyn dwi'n sôn pan dwi'n cyfeirio at brofiad Moira yn fanno, os da chi'n ystyried bod rhywun yn cael, dydwn ni canser, dwi wedi cael canser rhai blynyddoedd yn ôl, yna maen nhw'n mynd ar lwybrau cymorth. Mae yna sefydliadau ni cymorth nhw'n cynorthwyo nhw ar hyd y daith. Mae meddyg yn gwybod sy'n mae delio efo'r driniaeth, sy'n mae'n mynd i'r afel ar sefyllfa, ac yna mae'r cymorth yna ar hyd taith canser ganddyn nhw, ond pan fod nhw'n dod i ddementia, yna'n amlach na pheidio, mae'r claf a'r teulu'n cael ei gadael ar ei ben ei hun. Heb y cymorth wrap-around yna, mwyn sicrhau bod nhw'n gwybod sut mae mynd i'r afel ar clefyd, sut mae delio ar clefyd, a beth pa gamau sydd angen i gwneud, nid yn unig i'r claf, ond i'r teulu hefyd, mwyn dallt y cyflwr, ac mwyn paratoi ar gyfer y cyflwr, fer bod yr unigolyn a'r teulu yn gallu byw bywyd mor llawn a phosib drwy fod efo dementia. Ond di hynna ddim yn digwydd, does yna ddim strwythurau wedi cael ei roi mewn lle. Rwan, fe rwy'n ddadle mae rôl y gwasanaeth iechyd ydy hynna, yn sicr mae rôl gan y gwasanaeth iechyd i wneud yn siŵr fod hynna'n bodoli y cymorth yna, ond mae angen yr arweiniad gwleidyddol yna mwyn gorfodi sefydliadau meddygol i wneud hyn, mwyn sicrhau fod pobl ddim yn gorfod mynd trwy profiad mae Moira newydd esbonio i ni rwan, a'r holl boen meddwl mae rhywun wedi gorfod mynd trwyddo wrth drio ffindio datrysiadau i'r clefyd. Felly, dydy o ddim yn cael blaenoriaeth, ond mae posib iddo fo o newid ychydig o bethau yn y drefn.
Thank you, panel. Moira, the next question, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. Based on your experience, what do you think needs to change to improve the lives of people living with dementia and people like you who are caring for people living with dementia?
Iddyn nhw beidio cael ei gadael fath y ges i. Mae eisiau rwla i chi gael gwybod arweiniad lle ydych chi'n mynd, ond be fysa yn addas iawn fysa person wedi cael ei diagnosio, gael un person i helpu fo, a bod nhw hefyd yn gwneud yr arweiniad i wahanol lefydd yn lle fatha o'n i'n gorfod ffeindio rhifa, ac oedd hyn ddim tan ar ôl i fi fynd yn perthyn i Dementia Active sydd yn Gwynedd. Heblaw amdanyn nhw, dwi'm yn gwybod be fyswn i wedi wneud, os nhw sydd wedi helpu arwain fi i lefydd pwrpasol a di helpu ar y ffordd wrth fynd i gyfarfodydd a ffeindio gyn wahanol bobl a ond dwi wedi dall bod sydd wedi gwella maen nhw'n rhoi rhestr o enwa rwan i bobl sydd yn cael ei diagnosio o lefydd i fynd. Ond eto, y gofalwr sy'n gorfod gwneud hynny, dim yr ysbyty, maen nhw'n gadael o'i gyd dal i fod i'r gofalwyr a'r teulu.
There's two points actually I think are really important. I mean, there's pockets of good practice around Wales. We have dementia hubs in certain places, and I'm thinking of particularly the one in Port Talbot and in Swansea in the quadrant, which give great information in those key places where people often go on their day-to-day and offer really, really sound advice. And I think the best thing about them as well is actually they're quite cheap to run. I mean, it isn't a significant investment. And I know both Mabon and I have had conversations about that in the past, about how we might be able to roll out that best practice. Yep. And I think the point on, point ar gyfalwyr yn bwysig hefyd, Mae angen I sicrhau bod pob gyfalwr gyda'r hyfforddiant cywir o ran delio gyda pobl gyda dementia a be I ddweud wrthyn nhw wrth i'r dementia datblygu. A yn yr grŵp trawsbleidiol nawr yn y Senedd, mae hwnna'n actually rhywbeth mae'r grŵp trawsbleidiol yn edrych mewn I sut I sicrhau bod y gyfalwyr gyda'r y tools I sicrhau bod y gwybodaeth gywir gyda bobl a bod nhw'n cael ei edrych ar ôl yn gywir hefyd. So mae 2 pwynt really bwysig yna.
Ond mae 103 o wahanol dementia.
Ie, yn union.
Dim un neu ddau ydi o.
Ie, yn union.
Mae o'n ffeithio. Da ni fel grŵp gofalwyr dementia yn cyfarfod Covid bob yn ail dim Mawrth, a da ni hefyd yn hyll yn torri bwliau, da ni'n cadeud sut da ni'n teimlo. A mi oedd yna un person yn fanno, oedd y dementia ar ei gŵr hi, di ffeithio ar ei olwg o. Wedyn, doedd ddim yn gweld dim byd o gwbl. Oedd hwnnw'n un, tos am lot ono fo. Ond, di pobl ddim yn sylweddoli bod dementia bobl yn aml. Maen nhw'n edrach reit da, fel mae ngŵr i'n edrach yna. A fysa chi'n yn gwybod tan da chi efo fo am chydig o amser ac yn ffeindio, diolch yn siarad, diolch yn pasio comments. A wedyn mae rhywun yn gweld beth sy'n digwydd. Ond mae yna gymaint o wahanol fatha sydd yn erchyll, rhai o'n nhw yn erchyll. Ond da chi'n dysgu am hyn, da chi'n dysgu byw, neu dwi wedi gorfod dysgu byw efo dementia a ddasu fi fel gofalwr. Mae Idwal reit hapus I fyd. Mae o'n cael be mae o isio. Mae o'n licio sports, mae'n cael ei television, mae'n licio bob un math o sports. Mae'n licio mynd yn y car. Dwi'n ei milltiroedd pan dwi'n mynd o tŷ bob pnawn. Ddim yn siŵr iawn lle dwi'n gorffan, os mae o'n deud, troi efo yma, troi efo yma, troi efo yma. A dwi'n troi efo yma. Yn aml iawn, dwi wedi cyrraedd pen llun. Dych chi bod? Ond os di o licio fo, iawn. Dwi'n meidio trefio, diolch byth. Ond mae hynny I gadw fe fynd. A dwi'n gobeithio bod hynny yn gadw fe fynd. A na ddeud un secret bach arall dwi'n neud I Idwal. Dwi'n gweithio bob tro. Dwi'n rhaid word searches iddo fo. Rhai plant. Rhai dynnodio, mae'n dweud, dwi'n eisiau bloody thing ma, oce? Iawn, dwi'n rhaid iddo fo. Rhai dynnodio fydd yn dweud, dwi'n methu ffeindio hwn, sti. Iawn, ffeindio hwnnw. A tro arall, eithon neud o'i gyd, da. So, da chi'n addasu I sut mae o y diwrnod hwnnw.
There's an important element here as well, beyond Alzheimer's and dementia, is the role of carers and the important role that carers play generally within society. And I mentioned it in my speech this morning that unpaid carers, they play such an important role in looking after that individual and the families, but they don't get care themselves. They're not looked after by society. Now, we know that they need respite care. They need a break occasionally, not long, not asking for much. I'm not saying that the, carers need to go away on a holiday to the Caribbean or something, even though that might be nice.
I wish.
So sometimes it's just a case of going out for half an hour or something every now and then, or meeting up with friends. And that's not been made available to those carers. Now, if we are to ensure that dementia patients get the best care, then carers need to also receive the best care. And government has a role in ensuring that simple things like respite is provided to those carers. Because currently, I see members of Carers Wales and organisations around care in front of me. We know that those who receive assessment, it's only something like 6% of carers in Wales, I think I'm right in saying 6%, receive assessments. That's nowhere near enough. So we don't know the needs of the carers who are looking after their loved ones. So, as I say, we need to make sure that they're all looked after to ensure that the dementia patient gets the best care as well.
Absolutely, and what you're talking about there, that respite care, the picture is really patchy across Wales, but Moira, everything that you've been describing, that one point of support that you need, the person to lead you through these services, These are things that are supposed to exist, and they're supposed to exist for everybody in Wales, and they don't. So they are a part of the Dementia Action Plan currently, but they have not been implemented. And what you've spoken about, Mabon, with the kind of that political leadership, I want to come back to that point, if I may. You know, what should that look like? What does that drive? Somebody actually, you know, having the plan and actually, you know, changing lives with it. What does that look like?
Mae gynnon ni raglen gweithredu dementia wedi bod mewn lle ers rhai blynyddoedd, ond yn anffodus mi dyn ni dal yn gweld niferoedd yr asesiadau, niferoedd y bobl sy'n cael diagnosis yn isel iawn. Felly mae'n amlwg bod y cynllun fel mae o ddim wedi gweithio. Mae'n reswm am hynny, os edrychwch chi ar fyrddau iechyd Cymru, does na ddim un person ar y bwrdd sydd yn cymryd arweiniad yn hyn o beth. Felly mae'n rhaid sicrhau fod na unigolion ym mhob bwrdd iechyd sydd yn cymryd cyfrifoldeb ar ddementia. Wedi'r cyfan, mae'n cymryd fyny gymaint o'i hadnoddau nhw, gymaint o bres cyhoeddus yn cael ei roi fewn i ddementia, mae rhaid felly cael rhywun ar y byrddau iechyd sydd yn cymryd y cyfrifoldeb yna. Gwneud yn siŵr fod y Llywodraeth yn rhoi dementia yng nghanol i cynllun gweithredu nhw. Oherwydd ar hyn o bryd, mae yna gynlluniau... Mae'n broblem cyffredin gyda ni yn iechyd yng Nghymru. Mae yna gynlluniau yn cael ei gwneud rif y gwlyth. Mae yna dargedau newydd yn cael ei gosod drwy'r amser. A does rhan ohonyn nhw'n cael ei cadw at. Does neb yn gwybod pa darged i fynd ar ôl, oherwydd fod gymaint o dargedau gwahanol yn cael ei rolio allan drwy'r amser. Felly mae rhaid ni cael y cysondeb yna o'r top, efo'r Llywodraeth yn dweud, na, mae yna flaenoriaeth yn cael ei roi ar dementia, dyn ni'n mynd i gweld dementia yn cael ei daclo, dyn ni'n mynd i weld y niferoedd o diagnosis yn cynyddu, a mi dyn ni'n mynd i gadw at hyn tan bod ni'n gweld y targedau yna'n gwella, yn hytrach na newid targedau drwy'r amser a ddim gweithredu. Felly arweiniad gwleidyddol ydy hynny, newid diwylliant o'r canol.
And you talk about targets there. I mean, just to illustrate that point, the current Dementia Action Plan, which was published in 2018, was supposed to run until 2022 and was then extended. That plan promised to increase diagnosis rates by 3% each year. It's increased diagnosis rates by 3% over the life of the plan. So we're effectively 6 years behind where we should be. So, yeah, I totally agree, and the evidence is there to say we're not moving forward fast enough, and that leadership is absolutely not there. Now, just on the point about the impact on our NHS, so we know that 1 in 6 hospital beds in Wales is occupied by a person living with dementia. That means that, you know, they're in hospital, they're not at home, they're not necessarily receiving the care that they need, and that's also kind of a wider issue that, you know, if you don't solve the issue of dementia, you can't solve the issues that exist within the NHS. And so with those key stark statistics, why is it that we as a society are not prioritising dementia to the extent that we should be? And Luke, if I may start with you on this question.
Yeah, I mean, you go to the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend. On my last visit there was an entire ward that has basically been turned into a de facto care home. And residents there, a number of them with dementia, you can see the strain on nurses there, on the care staff. You can see the strain as well on the patients themselves because they're in an unfamiliar place. It's not somewhere where, you know, if you have dementia, you should be. Now, to be fair to the hospital, I mean, they've done everything they can to try and make it feel a bit more homely and a bit more like something you would expect in a house or even in a street. They've got a pretend bus stop there, for example, where one of the residents goes and sits there on a daily basis. But it's not really where actually someone with dementia should be. Someone with dementia should be in their own home for as long as they possibly can be, because we know that the familiar surroundings around somebody contributes actually to better quality of life, but also as well slows down the dementia. I did a lot of work back when I was in university around specifically the role of music in improving the lives of people with dementia, and how, you know, certain songs back from when people were younger could bring up some old memories. And the best analogy I think I was given for around how to think about dementia is just a long, tall bookcase. And I think it was Alzheimer Society that used that image. You know, this old bookcase you shake, and all the books at the top, which are your newer memories, are the ones that fall down. The ones at the bottom are the older memories that stay. So trying to tap into those memories, of course, gives a better quality of life for people with dementia. I think actually one of the reasons why perhaps we're not as focused or what the Welsh Government isn't as focused on dementia, is actually a symptom of their failures in other areas of health. For example, the priority and the prominence and we give to people working in care. You know, the fact that we have people working in care doing really, really hard jobs who aren't getting paid the amount of money that they should be getting paid to reflect the level of work that they have to do is a symptom throughout the NHS. And I think that's really goes to one of the core problems within dementia care is we haven't got enough people to be able to care for people with dementia, but also as well enough people to understand the different types of dementia and the requirements that come alongside that. You know, I remember when my mother was looking for somebody who could care for my grandmother. Very hard to find somebody. Very hard to find somebody who knew exactly what the issue was when it came to Lewy body dementia as well. So I think actually the way in which we treat our care staff is one of those key reasons and one of those key symptoms of not actually taking dementia seriously.
Absolutely, and I definitely want to come back to that point about social care. We did a survey, Alzheimer Society did a survey of people drawing on social care, and one of the things that they said would most improve their life is more care staff who are skilled in caring for people with dementia. People with dementia make up the largest proportion of people who draw on care, but many people are not trained and skilled in caring for people with dementia. Moira, I'd love to pick up on something Luke said there about the music, because I know that's been something that's been really important to you and your husband. So with the diagnosis was obviously a really difficult kind of, you didn't get much post-diagnostic support. But with the diagnosis, you are now attending groups, and one of those is a music group. So there has been benefit to the diagnosis in terms of the support you've been able to get afterwards.
Yes, he goes to a dementia active group in Carnarvon in the sports centre. And again, I don't think they let people know that these places are available either for people to go to. They go there, they do exercises, which they say is really good for them, you know, chair exercises, and then they play this game of boccia, which I had never heard of, which is absolutely brilliant and very competitive, because he goes to a league in Porthmadog once a month, which 20 different disabilities are there, and it's brilliant seeing all these people. And then they have a panad, and we're quite lucky. We've got a ukulele player in the Carnarvon group, and he plays various songs, English and Welsh. Idwal loves David William Morgan. He likes Our Hyd. And then we sing old songs, you know. And then we finish the session with Ken Dodd's song, Happiness. We don't finish on a downer, we finish on happiness, which is absolutely great. And everybody goes from there with a smile.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so on average, it takes people around 3.5 years from the first onset of symptoms until they're able to get a diagnosis. Are you able to kind of speak a little bit about what it was like trying to secure a diagnosis for your husband?
Well, for me, it wasn't too bad. As I've said before, he had vascular Parkinson. So they continued with tests for 2 years before he was diagnosed. But some people wait 2, 3 years. Some a bit less, it depends, but it's usually 2 to 3 years before they get diagnosed. This is talking with other carers and when we go to these meetings as well.
And what are the difficulties you think people face? Is it the stigma?
I don't know, really. I don't think they're quite sure. You know, I've had a lady lately saying, taking her husband to the doctor. Oh, no, he hasn't got dementia. And she said, are you sure? Can you please send him for tests? And I said, you'll have to persevere. I said, you will really have to persevere, which she has. And she says, thanks to you, she said, he's going for tests. How long those will take is another question.
But that's hugely problematic if people are going to their GP services and having to advocate for themselves in such a strong way to be able to get a diagnosis of something. I mean, we've done some surveys with GPs that have said around 18% of GPs don't see the benefit of a dementia diagnosis and are therefore less likely to refer their patients for additional diagnostic testing.
But you need the diagnosis so that you can deal with this, and everybody deals differently. You know, dementia is a slow dementia because we've seen a little bit of deterioration at the moment. But it's a slow process. Others do develop much more quickly. So they have to be diagnosed. Some people get medications, but it's with the one that you don't. So they need it just in case they need the medication. And the sooner they get that, the longer they'll stay, you know, pretty okay. Not okay, but you can deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. I'm going to put you on the spot now, Chairman. So what was it, 80% of GPs don't see the benefit?
18% of GPs, so that's a fifth.
Yeah.
A fifth of
Yeah.
GPs not seeing a benefit of a diagnosis of dementia, which is
So
high.
what was the reasons then that they were given that?
We've done some work on it, and it looks like it's things like stigma, not really understanding what the benefits are, long-standing beliefs around dementia that, you know, that there's no point in a diagnosis, you know, it's that sort of that stigma and that low public awareness, and that poor awareness exists with healthcare professionals as well. So it's about upskilling GPs, making sure that they're aware of the benefits of a diagnosis, not just the medication, but also the support that's available afterwards, the being able to plan for the rest of your life, understanding what's happening to you, those kinds of things. That sort of education and continuing professional development is missing at a primary care level.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the core of the reason why then the cross-party group wanted to go down the lines of knowledge about care within social care and the medical profession. I mean, I think there's an important role here for people with lived experiences to be feeding into that process as well, and to make sure then that actually, okay, if you have a health professional, they're exposed to those reasons as to why somebody has felt the benefit of a dementia diagnosis. That's why it shows that those lived experience side of stuff is really important.
Absolutely.
It's quite worrying to think then you've got medical professionals who don't see the benefit of a diagnosis.
Absolutely, and they are less likely to refer for testing because of it.
Gai ddod fewn hwnna, a so mae profiad claf efo dementia yn adlewyrchu'n berffaith y problemau sydd gennym ni yn y gwasanaeth iechyd. Felly mae'r gwasanaeth iechyd yn ei hanfod, mae pawb yn ymwybodol o'r problemau efo rhestrau aros a efo bod pobl yn y gwlau yn yr ysbytau. Ond os ydym ni'n mynd i ddelio efo'r problemau yn y gwasanaeth iechyd, mae eisiau delio efo'r ochr primary care, yr ochr gofal cynradd yna, GPs, meddygon teulu'n benna, a'r ochr gofal. A dyna'r problemau mae cleifion dementia yn ei wynebu. O'r ochr cynradd yna, mae'r diffyg dealltwriaeth, yr diffyg adnabyddiaeth yna o dementia, o beth ydi o, o'r effaith mae'n mynd i gael, sut mae taclo fo'n gynnar, sut mae'n gwneud yn siŵr bod rhywun yn medru byw efo dementia am gyfnod adre, yn weddol gyfforddus. Ond i bod nhw'n derbyn diagnosis yn rhy hwyr, ac felly erbyn y broses yna, maen nhw mewn gwely yn yr ysbyty, ac yna'r ochr arall ydy does na ddim gofal yn y gymuned yn bodoli. Does gyda ni ddim gweithlu, mae'r diffyg gofalwyr cymunedol, mae'r diffyg nyrsys arbenigol, mae'r diffyg adnoddau i ddelio efo cleifion dementia yn golygu bod ni bellach yn gweld pobl yn gorfod aros mewn llefydd sydd yn anaddas ar eu cyfer nhw. A dyna i chi'r problem iechyd yn gyffredinol, ond ar yr elfen acute yna, mae cleifion dementia yn byw hwnna drwyddi draw.
Ond hefyd, maen nhw'n gorfod mynd at bobl preifat.
Yn union hynny.
I helpu nhw.
Yn union.
A wedyn mae hwnnw'n costio.
Ydy.
A tydyn nhw'n cael help.
Ac felly nid NHS ydy o. Dydy o ddim yn free at the point of delivery. Mae o'n andros o ddrud i lot o bobl wedyn, yn dydy.
Ond mae yna un o'r carers dwi'n siarad efo ar y Zoom. Mae'n byw mewn ardal reit anhysbell. Mae'n bell o bob man. Tydy pobl i mynd hyd yn oed trio mynd yna am bod mae yn y lle mae. Mae'r person sydd efo dementia rwan doedd ddim ffit i aros adra. Oedden nhw wedi rhoi cynnig, mae'n byw yn ochrau traws Dolgella, traws fynydd, a cynnig lle yn rhyl iddi.
Yeah.
Ond mae hynna oriau drafeilio i'r gofalwr i fynd yna, ac i ddod yn ôl. Dim byd yn agos o gwbl. Dim lle addas, medden nhw.
A dim trafnidiaeth gyhoeddus, dim byd fel yna nag oes?
Na.
I mean, it's obviously totally unsuitable. You've mentioned about kind of the NHS as a whole, and you've spoken to all the problems that exist in dementia. It feels like you've been reading our briefings, maybe, Mabon. But I would absolutely agree with you. I'd like to, Luke, if I may, touch on some of the economic questions that exist around dementia. I mean, I mentioned that it currently costs our economy £2.3 billion a year. That's due to increase to 4.6 billion by 2040. If we don't change things, diagnose people earlier, for example, diagnosing somebody when they're able to take medicines called ACE inhibitors, that saves £50,000 to the economy and £10,000 to the person over their lifetime. These are not small figures, but an early diagnosis can save the economy money, but it saves the person money and their family money. So this is a kind of, Mabon, you used some words that I really liked in the Senedd in December, a moral and economic imperative to get dementia diagnosis right. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, well, because it speaks really powerfully, I think, and Mabon has spoken quite powerfully in the Senedd on this as well, about actually the need to get that early diagnosis. Because, of course, when we talk about people with dementia, I think the stigma around it is that people think, well, that's it, that's the end of the line. When actually you can live for a very long time with dementia, and you can live quite a fulfilling life, actually. And so that early diagnosis means that somebody can, for example, get the treatment they need and stay in work if they want for a while, for a bit longer, to go out and enjoy life. So unless we start to take that element of it serious, and again, like Mabon said, this is across the entire health service when it comes to diagnosis of many different diseases. But if we get this right from the start, the savings that would come as a result then to the NHS purse, the savings that come as a result of people being able to continue to be economically active if they want to, will be quite substantial. The savings as well to people's care needs as well is quite significant. I mean, we were talking earlier in a round table about the whole mantra of economic inactivity, and I think sometimes that is a bit of a red herring when we say economic inactivity, because as it was pointed out around the round table, actually those people who are caring for people are providing a service and are saving money for the wider public service element of stuff. We have to think, I think, a bit differently about how we calculate some of this stuff, and how that impacts on economic figures and forecasts and all sorts of things. But the important thing here is actually, you have a long, fulfilling life ahead of you, even if you get a dementia diagnosis. And the key thing is we need to get that diagnosis as soon as possible, so that then that can be realised by people living with dementia.
Absolutely. And Mabon, it's a similar question, but the whole health system. What does the future of dementia services look like to you? What does an ideal service? Thinking about the experiences of people like Moira and Idwal, what does the future of dementia services look like?
Well, first of all, we need to ensure that those working in the primary care sector understand the symptoms, understand what dementia is, and can prepare for it, so that society can prepare for it. Look, we can either bury our heads in the sand and pretend this isn't happening and carry on as we are, and then that cost is going to increase exponentially over decades, and more people and their families are going to suffer. We can lift our heads up and recognise the reality and say, we have got people living with dementia, more people will be living with it, so let's do something about it now. That means, as I said, ensuring the primary care sector understands dementia and prepares for it, and ensuring that we have the workforce prepared and ready to work with dementia patients in the community, so that they can help those unpaid carers, can help those loved ones, make sure that there is a support network there for people living with dementia. And then those people living with dementia can live a fulfilling, dignified life, because there's a support there for them. But at the moment, it seems like we've got a government with their heads in the sand.
And I mean, you were talking earlier about sort of integrated care and health systems. Dementia is it needs the GP, it needs primary care, it needs secondary care. People with dementia present at A&E far more than other populations. And then it does need that transfer then often to community care and to care homes maybe. It's that perfect sort of test to show the need for an integrated care system.
Yeah, the care system isn't working and isn't fit for purpose at the moment. There are too many gaps there between what the local authority can deliver, what the health boards deliver, and people falling in between those gaps. There's significant problems with making sure that people understand what they are allowed to get, what benefits they might be allowed to get, what support is there. And until we ensure that they are aligned, perfectly aligned, local authorities aligned with the health board, and that they work together, then we're going to see people falling through those gaps.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes for audience questions if anybody is interested. I think we've got a roaming mic, I believe, back there. So did anyone have any questions, thoughts?
Chi'n clywed fi? Just eisiau, diolch am y drafodaeth, mae'n ofnadw o ddifyr. Does neb wedi sôn dim byd am y gwasanaethau drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg, byddwn ni licio barn y panel, please, os gwch yna.
Services in Welsh language, Moira. Do you have any, I mean, what was your experience of services in the Welsh language? We know there is a gap. We know there is a huge gap.
Definitely gaps, yes, but okay, we're in Gwynedd, and Gwynedd is quite Welsh. Pam dwi wedi mynd yn ôl I Saesneg. Mae Gwynedd yn Gymraeg, tydi. Mae lot o bobl yn Penllyn ac eblaw bod pobl yn siarad Cymraeg efo nhw. Fysa nhw'n yn dallt lot o bethau. So mae'n hanfodol bod Cymraeg yn dŵad gynta yn y peth yma. Os I lot o bobl, tydyn nhw'n defnyddio Saesneg a fwy byth pan mae gynnon nhw yr salwch hyll yma. Tydyn nhw'n dall beth ydych chi ddeud yn Saesneg, da. Gynnon nhw ddim syniad beth ydych chi'n siarad amdan. Os ydych chi'n deud rhywbeth, ydych chi fo, a effaith iddo fo, maen nhw fatha sbio i'r nilla. So mae eisiau Cymraeg fod yna, da.
Ie, mae'r reality o dementia yn meddwl bod lot o bobl yn mynd nôl i'w mamiaeth. A un o'r broblemau fi wedi gweld, mae'n o ran Gwynedd, mae pethau lot o well nag yw nhw'n lawr yn y de. So mae'n lot o deuluoedd lawr yn y de, ble Gymraeg yw'r mamiaeth, a maen nhw'n colli mas ar y foment. So mae'n rhaid I ni actually edrych fel rhan o y tools ni'n rhoi i'r gyfalwyr, bod nhw hefyd yn deall hynny, a pan maen nhw'n gweld rhywun gyda dementia sydd ddim ond yn siarad Gymraeg, bod nhw'n gwybod wedyn, reit, mae rhaid I fi mynd mas I ffeindio rhywun sy'n gallu cyfathrebu da'r person yma, o leia cyfathrebu da'r person yma, mwyn I ni gallu darparu y gofal sydd ei angen. Fi wir yn poeni am y teuluoedd yna yn y de, yn y gorllewin, yn y dwyrain sydd ddim yn cael yr un cymorth ag yw teuluoedd yn ardaloedd fel Gwynedd a falle yn rannu o'r gorllewin hefyd.
Os gai, Elin, ddod ar hwnna, mae yna broblem penodol hefyd efo'r Gymraeg. Oedd gyda I etholwr Cymro Cymraeg iaith gyntaf oedd wedi datblygu dementia o fath arbennig. Ac oherwydd nad oedd y gofal ar gael yng Ngogledd Cymru, oedd wedi gorfod mynd a teithio I gartre yn Leek yn Lloegr. Felly oedd y ddarpariaeth, nid yn unig oedd y ddarpariaeth yn bell o adre i'r unigolyn yna, fod y teulu'n gorfod teithio bellderoedd, rhai ohonyn nhw ddim yn gyrru hun, ond oedd o ddim yn medru cael y ddarpariaeth ar gofal yn I famiaeth o, oherwydd bod o'n rhywle arall. Rwan, mae'n rhaid I ni weld y buddsoddiad yn dod o Lywodraeth Cymru sicrhau fod gyda ni'r gweithlu fan hyn sydd efo'r gallu I ddarparu gofal trwy gyfrwng Gymraeg yn arbenigol ar bob un cam o'r ffordd. Ac tan yn bod ni'n cael hynny, yna mi fyddwn ni'n gweld fwy o enghreifftiau bobl yn gorfod teithio I Loegr, neu hyd yn oed I lefydd eraill, hyd yn oed o fewn Cymru, oedd gynnau etholwraig o ardal Dolgellau oedd wedi mynd i gartre yng Nghonwy, ond bod ni'n dod o Wynedd ac bod y gofal cymunedol yn well yng Ngwynedd, oedd y cartre gofal yng Nghonwy ddim yn darparu. Felly, os ydym ni'n cael awdurdodau lleol yn allanoli gofal, yna mae rhaid gwneud yn siŵr fel rhan o'r cytundeb yna fod y ddarpariaeth ieithyddol yn rhan ohono fo, achos mae'r ddarpariaeth ieithyddol yn gymaint rhan o'r gofal clinigol bron, fysa rhywun yn ddweud, o'r ananghenion y claf ag meddyginiaeth ac yn y blaen hefyd.
Ond mae yna bamffledi, da ni wedi cwffio i gael nhw'n ddwyieithog. So mae hynny yn help hefyd i'r gofalwyr.
Yndi.
I siarad amdano fo, neu ddarllen amdano fo'n Gymraeg. A wedyn mae o ochr arall i'r Saeson, sydd da ni wedi gweithio'n galad ar rhai y llyfrau fel hyn, fel gofalwyr, nathon ni helpu Dementia Active i wneud pamffledi yn ddwyieithog.
Everything that you're saying, it exists in social care as well. These issues with not being able to receive social care in your mother tongue. And so one of our key calls for Welsh Government is mandatory dementia training for social care workers, and a part of that is the understanding of culturally competent care, which is extremely important, and part of that is understanding the needs of the person and understanding the needs that they need to receive care in their preferred language. It's incredibly important, and there are enormous gaps at the moment, and particularly gaps across rural Wales. Do we have any other questions?
Yn gyntaf, ga i ddiolch i chi, Moira, am rannu'ch profiad chi. O'n i wrth fy modd yn clywed am y word searches, am y gyrru, hyd a lled, Penllyn ac am yr ukulele. Fydda hwnna'n rhywbeth fy nheulu i hefyd yn joio. So oedd hwnna'n gret. Ac o'n i hefyd wrth y modd yn clywed am y grŵp i chi mynd i trwy Dementia Action, sy'n rhoi lle dymeddol i chi ac i ofalwyr eraill, ac i edwalddod gyda chi i gymdeithasu. So mae hwnna'n ffab. Beth o'n i ddim wrth y modd yn clywed, wrth gwrs am y profiad na ddechreuoch chi gyda, y pwynt diagnosis yna yn y lleoliad iechyd, lle gawsoch chi'r diagnosis a wedyn dyna ni. Ac oedd hwnna, dyn ni wedi sôn am ofal cymdeithasol ers hynny, ond o'n i'n meddwl, mae yna bwynt fan'na'n does ynghylch y gwahaniaeth pan mae rhywun yn cael diagnosis sy'n rhywbeth meddygol a dyn ni'n ystyried yn rhywbeth iechyd, a wedyn y gofal sy'n mas yn y gymuned sydd yn y sector gofal cymdeithasol. Dyn ni ddim wastad yn meddwl am y bwlch na, petai rhywun yr enghraifft efo clefyd neu cancer, fydde'r gofal yna i gyd yn digwydd trwy'r system iechyd. Ond i dementia, o'n i bai bod chi yn llwyddo i gael continuing healthcare, mae'r gofal yna yn dod o'r system gofal cymdeithasol. Ac oeddech chi'n sôn wrth gwrs am y problem o orfod talu am ofalwyr i ddod mewn. Sut mae'n mynd i'r afel, dwi'n gofyn i'r panel, nid i Moira yn tro hwn, sut mae'n mynd i'r afel a'r bwlch na, y gwahaniaeth na ni'n gweld, a y diffyg integreiddio rhwng y system iechyd a gofal cymdeithasol, a be allwn ni wneud i fynd i'r afel ar hynny?
Sounds like one for you, Mafan.
Yn yng nghyfraniad i bore yma, munud sy'n glir, mae Uchelgais Plaid Cymru, Llywodraeth Plaid Cymru, fydde creu gwasanaeth gofal cenedlaethol wedi integreiddio'n llwyr efo'r gwasanaeth iechyd. Mwyn gwneud yn siŵr fod y gaps yna ddim yn bodoli, fod na lwybr llyfn o'r dechrau i'r broses, i'r diwedd bron, mwyn bod pobl yn cael y gofal gorau posib. Felly mae hynna'n ymrwymiad ganddon ni, mi fysen ni'n sicrhau fod yna'n digwydd. Dio ddim yn mynd i fod yn hawdd gwneud hynny. Mae'n golygu newid pensaerniaeth y gwasanaeth iechyd a gofal. Mae'n golygu alunio ffiniau gwahanol fyrddau efo'i gilydd, gwneud yn siŵr fod cyllidebau yn cael eu rhannu. Mae yna lot o waith diflas ond hanfodol angen i wneud, ond os nad ydyn ni'n glir Fel plaid, fel llywodraeth, fel cenedl, mae'r hyn sydd yn bwysig ydy'r outcomes yna. Ydy lles pobl Cymru, ydy'r canlyniad, os da ni'n dilyn prosesau'r lles dilyn prosesau'n unig, heb ganolbwyntio ar ganlyniad, yna fyddwn ni ddim yn gweld gwella mewn safon bywyd pobl. Felly mae'n rhaid ni gadw'r canlyniad yna. Be sy'n bwysica i gleifion dementia a'i hanwyliad nhw? Sut allwn ni wneud i bywyd nhw'n haws? Sut allwn ni gael cymdeithas i ddallt y cyflwr ac addasu ar gyfer y bobl yma? A dyna pam dwi'n credu fod rhaid ni fynd drwy'r broses o newid pensaerniaeth gofal a iechyd yng Nghymru mwyn cyrraedd y pwynt.
Do we have any more questions? No, great. Well, we've got 1 minute left, so it's good that we didn't. I'd like to really thank all of our panellists, especially Moira, for sharing your experience.
Yeah.
It's really invaluable.
Can I just, before I go, ga I ofyn cwestiwn bach i chi, please, o'r wrth y gofalwyr mae hyn. Mae pobl yn gofyn wrtha i yn aml iawn ac anwyliad pobl eraill sy'n maidol. Dyn nhw lew? Yndi, mae o'n lew. Da ni'n dilio, da ni'n byw efo fo. Os yn neb byth yn gofyn, sut wyt ti? Ga I ofyn i chi, please, os ydych chi'n gofyn wrth unrhyw cerer, dim os be maen nhw'n watchod ar ôl, sut wyt ti'n copio?
Bwysig.
Mae'n bwysig. Diolch.
I think let's finish there. That finished it better than I ever could. So thanks so much, panel. And if you want to carry on the conversation, come and see us in the exhibition hall. We're talking about what we need for the next Dementia Action Plan for Wales. Thank you.